Pamela Bruner is a business coach, author, speaker, and EFT, that's emotional freedom technique, expert. After removing her own marketing and sales blocks, Pamela grew her business from $375 a month to $1 million in less than 3 years. She specializes in working with conscious entrepreneurs to build 6 and 7 figure businesses. She's the co-author of Tapping into Ultimate Success, a book and DVD with Jack Canfield, who's the creator of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And she's also created Real Social Media Success, a digital marketing company that helps entrepreneurs harness the power of Facebook advertising. Welcome, Pamela.
Thank you so much, Gail. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, you've got an interesting background. You've done some interesting things. So I have to ask you why you became a coach.
Before I was a coach, I was actually a professional musician. I was
Oh,
yeah, I know. I was a Celtic harpist and singer, and people hear that and go, really? That's very professional.
harpist, a harpist.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, I was. And I loved performing. I loved playing the harp. I loved singing for people. But one of my favorite things to do was to teach a workshop called Creating Music with Love, Not Fear, which was all about how to get over performance anxiety so you really let your gifts shine in the world. And I realized that I was sort of living to teach that workshop a couple times a year at major harp conferences. And I thought, I got to find a way to do this all the time. And so I actually created a mantra for myself called I know that Spirit knows how to do what I love, be with those I love, and make more money than I ever imagined. I accept that path now, and I have the courage to walk it. And I had no idea what I was talking about, but a couple months later, somebody said, "How about coaching?" And I said, "What's coaching?" And that was the beginning of this journey.
Wow. Well, I have to laugh when you say about performance anxiety because I gave a concert in my senior year in high school and I was also a dancer. So I was on stage singing and dancing all the time. But I had one little secret, and that was I'm blind as a bat. And this was before contacts. I didn't have contacts until my I think I was a freshman in college when I got my contacts. And so I just took my glasses off and I couldn't see anything. And so I never got nervous when I would sit down at the piano. I knew where middle C was, and that's where I sat. And I always started off my dance with my partner on the other side of the stage, waving his arms in some frantic motion so I could find him. And so I never had that. And that's my own little secret as to how I got through all of that.
Oh,
But,
that's great. I love that story.
but anyway, you do coach people who are in business and to build their businesses. And why do you think so many people find running a business so hard?
The strategy can be a little bit complicated, but mostly anytime we are asking ourselves to step up and do something that is uncomfortable, it's going to be hard. So people always come to me looking for the strategy, or often they come looking for the strategy. It's a rare person that comes saying, I know I'm the thing in my own way. I've got the strategy and I'm not implementing it. But a lot of people are looking for the next secret. What's the secret? How can I do this? And the secret is that you have to become someone who can actually implement the strategies that you learn about. So I look at it, and you may have seen this thing that says, money and love and all of that are great big zeros, and your health is a one. And if you don't have your health, the money and the love and everything else is worthless. And if you have your health, everything else becomes very valuable. That's kind of the way that I look at strategy and mindset, or what I call empowerment, which is sort of the inner fortitude to do the work. Is the strategy is like having a one, and then the mindset is like having 10 zeros after it. And if you've got the mindset plus the strategy, you are a very wealthy person. If you have just the strategy, you have one thing and it's not very valuable. And if you have just the mindset but no strategy, you're also kind of out of luck. But the combination of the two is really powerful. And I think that's why so many people think it's hard, is that they don't take into account that the biggest work you have to do is the work on yourself.
That is so true. And it's true in anything that you do, Pamela. You've got to work on yourself. I don't care if it's in a relationship. I don't care if it's in a business. I don't care if it's in anything at all. I mean, you have to work with your head first, and you've got to make sure it's on right. So, what do you think? You think that's the number one thing that holds people back? I mean, is there something else that's kind of sneaking in there as well?
Well, the interesting thing about mindset work, and this is a distinction that I've made only in the last couple of years, and I've been doing mindset work, my entire coaching career, and I trained as a coach about 11 years ago, is that people think that all you need is the right beliefs. Like, I believe that abundance is flowing to me, or I believe that the universe is benevolent, or I believe that I'm going to make 6 or 7 figures this year, or something like that. Um, but there is a difference between rational, intellectual, conscious beliefs and subconscious, or what I call emotional beliefs. And if the two are not in alignment, your emotional beliefs will trump every single time. So often when people say, I don't understand, I've got these affirmations and I'm saying all these good things and I really believe I can, and everything points to the fact I can, but they don't emotionally believe it. Or they're not emotionally in alignment with, say, sales. They feel like sales is sleazy. Or they're not in emotional alignment with marketing. They feel like marketing and putting themselves out there is somehow manipulative or wrong. And as long as emotionally you're not in alignment, you can't actually take the action. And I'm going to tell you something that I'm guessing you're familiar with, Gail, but I want to make sure that everybody listening has heard this. And that is that the subconscious controls over 90% of what we do every single day. So I compare it, I've heard it compared to a rider, an elephant, and a path. The rider is the conscious mind, the elephant is the subconscious, and the path is your environment, the world that you have to work in. If the rider wants to go in a direction and the elephant doesn't, the rider has no hope of actually controlling the elephant. The only way you go in a certain direction is if the elephant actually wants to. And most people work very hard to strengthen the rider so the rider can control the elephant. And honest to goodness, it looks like one of those crazy cartoons with a human being carrying an elephant. It's absurd to try to strengthen your conscious will so that you control your emotions. Instead, I think what you do is you train your emotions. And this is part of the work that I do as a business coach. You actually train your emotions so the rider and the elephant are going in the same direction and everybody's happy. And then life is a whole lot easier.
And that kind of goes to what people talk about when they talk about vibrations. And
Mhm.
all the vibrations have got to be in alignment, because whatever you're putting out there, one way or the other, is going to come back to you. And that's a lot of the subconscious. So, uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, very much so. So that brings me to ask you then, you must have put out these vibrations. How did you get to co author with Jack Canfield?
I love that question, and people do ask me that all the time. I- the short answer is I asked, and now I'll give you the longer answer. Um, I went to one of Jack's events, his Breakthrough to Success event, which a week long transformational training. And I had just put out my first book called EFT and Beyond, and it's a transformational book on the techniques of EFT tapping, which is one of the modalities that I love to use. And so on a break, I showed Jack that book, and he admired it. And then a little later in the training, there were 400 people in the room, and he said, "Okay, on the next break, I want you to go up to somebody. I want you to make a big ask of them. Ask them for something really big." And I was not alone in charging the stage to get to Jack, but I was in the third row and I kind of manhandled my way up there. I think I was the second person in line. And I said, "Jack, I want to write a book with you on how to use EFT tapping for your book, The Success Principles." And he said, "Actually, that project has been started, but it is stalled. So here's my private email address, and why don't you write me and let's talk about it." And so it took a couple of months going back and forth about this. And he sent me the work that had already been done on the book. And I made my second courageous decision, which is I said, "Jack, I don't like this book. I think you and I can write a more powerful book. Here's a proposal for you, and here's a sample chapter." And he said yes to that. And so that's the book that became Tapping into Ultimate Success.
Wow. Well, that was very gutsy, as you said. But was that writing his writing, or was it someone else's writing?
It was someone else's writing. It wasn't,
Ah, okay.
yeah, it was somebody that he'd been looking at partnering with who'd just done a little preliminary work. And so anyway, we went with the idea that I had, and I think it turned out as a good book.
Well, then tell us why you think tapping is so powerful.
I can give you a spiritual explanation or I can give you a scientific explanation. And that's one of the things that I love about tapping is that the what was originally said about EFT tapping was that it accessed the acupuncture or acupressure points, but more recently, scientific studies have been done that prove that tapping calms the amygdala, the fear center of the brain, and it lowers the cortisol or the stress hormone levels in the bloodstream. So I don't know about you, Gail, but I know that when I am in the grip of a strong emotion, particularly a strong negative emotion, like I'm irritated, I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm fearful, I am not as rational and as resourceful as I am when I am calm. So if I'm looking at, wow, I have to reach out to a potential client, and if I'm nervous about that, I'm going to reach out much less effectively, or I'm going to find a way to procrastinate that action. If I'm feeling really calm about that, I'll probably be my most resourceful self, and I've got the best chance of getting hired. And we see this too when we're irritated. We say things we wish we hadn't later and things like that. So tapping puts you back in a state of your best resourcefulness so that you can then take really, really powerful action.
Well, I do agree with you that you don't make your best decisions when you're out of sorts and you're not in a calm state. That's for sure. So, what would you say would be your most transformational experience that you've had? Was that something that Jack's course helped with, or is that something that tapping helped with?
Um, Tapping has been my constant companion for the last 10 years, and I've done so much transformation with it that, I mean, when you take a transformation called going from $375 a month to over $1 million a year in 3 years, that's pretty transformational. I know that I'm a completely different person and that actions that would have seemed scary to me 5 years ago now seem very commonplace. But I actually, there are clients that I've worked with who say, well, I never made more than $10,000 a year, and I met Pamela, and this year I'm at 200,000 or something like that. But I actually want to tell you a story that I call my Peggy story, which is one of my favorite examples of the power of EFT tapping. And this actually happened back before I created this business. I was doing a little bit of coaching, but I wasn't running the business that I run now. And this was when I had my imaginary coaching business, two clients, one of them's coaching for free, before I figured out the marketing and everything. Um, and a woman came to me named Peggy who said, uh, I, I was diagnosed with a terminal form of cancer, and the doctors told me that I could have a bone marrow transplant. But a year after that transplant, the cancer would come back and I would die. She said, my year is up and I'm afraid every single day that I'm going to die. Can you help me? And I said, well, I can't help you with anything medical. It's not my area of expertise. I don't know anything about it. But I may be able to help you with the fear and the anger. And so we did some EFT tapping. And the extraordinary thing was, it only took 2 sessions. And the fear was gone, the anger was gone. And that was 7 years ago. Peggy is still alive. She has her own
Wow.
business now, helping people with diagnosis of cancer through her own tapping work. She's now become a tapping practitioner herself. So, I don't take any credit for the fact that she's still alive, but Peggy does credit the transformational process with saving her life. And that to me is just the power of how our emotions can affect us, not only emotionally, but physically. And when we get those emotions more in alignment with who we want to be in the world, we can do extraordinary things.
Fabulous. Wow. That's kind of like bone chilling. But you do help people charge what they're worth, and I know people sometimes have they gulp when they think about what they have to charge.
Mhm.
So, what are one of the most important ways you do that, or is that also through tapping?
It is a combination of some good mindset techniques, some good mindset ideas, and some tapping. So let me, if I can, let me take a minute or two to walk you through this process because I think it could be very helpful for people.
Sure.
Um, and I won't try to teach tapping on this particular show, but I will tell you it's pretty easy to do by yourself. The mindset ideas. But behind charging what you're worth are that number one, everybody has a money set point, and a money set point is the amount of money that you think it's reasonable to pay for something.